Being recorded.
All right, so let's get started. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Jessica Olivas. I have been with JRL for a little over 2 years now. I really enjoy it. This was a big goal I had for myself when I got into this industry. So it's been really fun. Obviously, I miss traveling and going to shows with my family and stuff, but you know, thanks to COVID, that's not really happening right now. But yeah, I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We are here in my little shop. And I will be doing like a gentleman's haircut. Side part, I'm going to style him real nice. Also do a beard trim so that way you guys can see how I do beard trims. I do a ton of beard trims. So yeah, again, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and just shout them out. Take advantage of this free education. Pick my brain, ask any question that pops into your head. No question is a dumb question. There may be someone else that has the same question and is wondering. So yeah, just pick my brain, take advantage of this education, and I'll do my best to answer it. And then just a little bit about me. I have been cutting hair for about 8 years, I think now. And it's funny, I actually had no, I wasn't planning on doing men's hair. I wanted to go to cosmetology school, work in a high-end salon, and doing women's hair, but that's not how that worked. When I was in school, you know, you're allowed to extern and get extra hours for school. So there was a girl who worked at my school, and she was like, hey, my husband owns a barbershop. We need someone to run the front desk. And I was like, I don't care. I just want to get my extra hours for school, right? So I ended up working there on Fridays just to get my hours, and I just would sit there all day and watch them cut hair and ask them questions, and I really fell in love with it. And by the time I graduated, they had an open chair and they offered it to me, so I was like, sure, why not? But even at that point, I was still wanting to do women's hair. We were carrying Avita products at the time. So in my head, I was like, you know, all these guys that come in here, they have girlfriends, wives, sisters, moms, you know, whoever. I was like, those will be my clients. Well, that wasn't the case. So I just started taking walk-ins, and that's kind of just how I started cutting men's hair and got into barbering, and I really love it. I really love the fast pace of it rather than sitting with women, you know, 2 hours plus. I really like the pace of it. The vibe of an overall barbershop is really up my alley, so I'm really enjoying it. I love it. I love what I do, so yeah, alrighty. Well, let's go ahead and get started with the haircut. I am going to do a bald fade on the sides, and I will be going through everything step by step again. Feel free to ask as many questions as you want. So I'm going to start off by debulking the sides. I'm using my JRL 2020 clippers, and I have my 1 guard on, which essentially makes it like a 2. I only use 2 guards to fade, this 1 guard and my 0 guard. So I will use this to take off the bulk, and I will stay below the parietal ridge. One thing that, I don't know if you guys have ever heard the saying, shape over shade. Well, I live by that. I will never sacrifice the quality of my shape of the haircut for a fade. The shape of your haircut is going to be your foundation. It's going to ensure that your haircut grows out nicely and that it lasts longer. So I very, very rarely cut into the curvature of the head. I keep everything very square. And that is key for me. What makes a good haircut is how it grows out. When a client comes back to me, I've had people come back and they say, oh, like, sorry, I haven't been in a while. Like, I haven't need to come in because my hair grew out so nice. Like, that is the ultimate compliment. So shape over shade always. With men's hair, you know, we keep everything really square. So I will show you guys how I do clip over comb to keep that shape. And when I go to debulk the sides now, I will stay below the parietal ridge. And for those of you that don't know how to find the parietal ridge, if you hold your comb up to your client's head. You guys can see wherever the comb lifts off the head is the parietal ridge, and that's where the head starts to curve. So you don't want to take your fade into the curvature of the head. And the shape of your client's head is going to be your roadmap. So I will always drop down in the back because we never, ever, ever want to cut off the crown. There are very, very few circumstances where I will kind of like shave and shape the crown, but this is not one. It's kind of like one of my pet peeves is when I see people who have like super long hair in the top, but the crown is all shaved off. Like, I don't like that. It doesn't grow out good. It doesn't lay down, so we don't want to do that. I will tell you guys, I am not a super fast hair cutter. I like to take my time. My clients appreciate that I take my time. And when you're using clippers, it's always really important to scoop out. And one trick too to not cut into the curvature of your head is to kind of, I use my corner. So when I'm pretty much right here at the parietal ridge, I use this corner and see how this is kind of tilted out. That keeps me from going into the curve of the head. Now I'm going to go in clipper over comb and just take this off. And anytime I do clipper over comb, I'm always tilting my comb out, always out. Just so that way I can preserve my shape in that square shape and to ensure that I don't go in towards the curve of the head. And one trick that I have found with clipper over comb, so here is your guideline, right? So whenever you're doing your clipper over comb, you're gonna go in, pick up the hair, tilt out, and wherever this line is, you're gonna put that kind of right at the spine of your comb. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just getting rid of some of this bulk. Like I said, I'm not a fast hair cutter, so especially when I'm doing clipper over comb, you won't see me like some barbers, they're like super fast. Yeah, I don't do that. I like to chip away. This is where I set my shape. This is the foundation of my haircut. So I don't want to just be super quick and then possibly like take a hole out or take a chunk out. So I like to take my time. I chip away. It may take a little bit longer, but that's how I do it. All right, so now I'm going to set in my bottom guideline. I'm going to go ahead and just close my blade all the way so that way it is a 0. I'm going to set my guideline in. I'm going to drop down in the back.
What's up? What's up? All right.
And then if you're kind of new to fading into men's hair, if you are doing like a 0 on the bottom, I would recommend kind of keeping your guideline low. So that way, as you're fading up, you don't take the fade too high. And then to determine where you put this guideline, that's where you guys will determine that in your consultation. So like for me, unless someone specifically tells me they want a low fade, mid fade, high fade, I kind of do them all the same, like kind of around this area. Just so that way I do have more room to fade. And for those of you that don't know, if someone comes in and they say they want a low fade, you're going to kind of keep it around this area, just right above the ear. Mid fade, be just a little bit higher, right there. And high fade is like, I mean, everyone's going to tell you a little bit differently, but for me, high fade is still below the parietal ridge because I will still keep my haircuts fairly square, even for a high fade. All right, we got that first guideline set in. Now I'm going to put my half guard on. And I'm going to close it a little bit and just flick. And then as I kind of move up, I'm going to slowly open my blade. I'm constantly going back and forth between opening and closing. And it really takes practice to really get that movement down, that scooping motion. For me, I had to like really be conscious about it and aware. So if that is something you struggle with, I would advise you to, as you're doing a haircut, just keep telling yourself, flick, 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 until it just becomes second nature. And another reason why I won't sacrifice the shape of my haircut for the fade is because nobody's head is perfect. Everyone has dips and bumps, and there are very few heads that are perfectly smooth and round. So there may be, on some haircuts, there may be a little dark spots and stuff that need to stay there in order to keep that nice silhouette for the haircut. And I'm not going to go digging in there just to get like a perfectly clean fade. I can pretty much guarantee you that your clients will be more appreciative of how their haircut grows out rather than like, oh, I looked in the back of my head, there was this one dark spot there, like the fade wasn't that good. Like no one's ever gonna tell you that. And if they do, I'm sorry, you don't want them as a client. So and then like the haircuts you see on Instagram and stuff, like a lot of times their models, they have those people in mind that have that perfectly smooth round head. They don't have dips and bumps and lumps and all those things. So don't get discouraged when you see these super blurry fades on the internet. That's all just for the gram, you know? Oh no. What the heck happened? Oh, sorry. I don't know what happened. Okay. So now I got that done. I took my guards off. I'm just going to use the blade. I'm probably going to close it about halfway, so it's a half. And using only like half of my blade, I'm going to start to work out this initial guideline. Any questions so far? Is there anything you guys struggle with or certain kind of hair texture, hair type, or haircut that you have problems with? Any problem areas? Anything like that? And then I'm just going to close it a little bit more. Actually, I'm going to close it all the way. If you're a Cosmo and you are new to cutting men's hair, I feel like a lot of Cosmos are afraid to take it too short. Because I see a lot of Cosmos, when they cut hair, the shape is like this. So the hair is like this. It comes straight out because they're too afraid to take it tight, to take it in more, to get that nice shape. Don't be afraid. But just keep in mind your shape. You don't want to lose the shape of your haircut ever. And if you are one of those people that likes to cut off the crown, you can stop doing that now because I'm going to teach you how to keep this. Only the hair types where I think I have like one guy where I shave off the crown and really shape it. He has that super straight hair that sticks straight out of his head, and he gets a high fade and like short on top. So only like in that instance will I do that. So I'm just going back and forth between opening and closing my blade, using the corner. I am going to do his beard, so I'll go ahead and just kind of get that started. He does keep a short beard, so I do have no guard on this, and it is open, so it's a 1. So I'm going to go ahead and shave that down to about right there on his ear. And then you're going to blend the sideburns just like you would the rest of the hair. Any questions so far? Don't be shy. No question is a dumb question. If you want to get good at using the corner of your blade, I would recommend practicing tapers. So a taper is kind of where you just fade right here in this temple area and then the nape. When I do tapers, I only use like the corner and half of my blade. So if that's something you need to work on, you can try doing that. You have to be really aware of where your blade is when you do tapers. Because when you're working in this area, you don't want to like cut into the top up here or anything like that. So good practice. And just another little tip, if you're doing a taper or you're cutting someone's hair for the first time, just be aware of the density of the hair right here, because everyone's hair is a little less dense right here. So you'll have people where it's like really thin right here. So when you go to fade, it takes a lot less work to fade this area when there's not as much hair than like in the back of the head where it's the most dense. If you've ever come across that, I'm sure you've noticed because you've taken the fade a little too high right here. I mean, I've done it in the past, especially with a taper. So just kind of be aware of that. Keep it a little bit lower right here so that way you give yourself a little bit more room I've totally done that in the past. I had this guy, he used to get a blowout. So that was just like a taper on the sides and then like long. I'd never cut his hair before, and I started like essentially fading right here, and I took like the 1.5 like I would normally do, but since his hair was so thin right there, it looked like it was a lot higher. So that's just something to keep in mind, a little tip. Okay, I put my half guard back on. I'm gonna close it a little bit. I kind of fade down and then work my way back up. So I used my one guard and then this guard and then worked my way down, and now I'm going to build my way back up. Keeping in mind not to take the fade too high and not to go into the curvature of the head. So I see about 5 or 6 ladies on here. That's awesome. If you guys have any questions, let me know, shout them out. You can unmute yourselves. I also like to listen to my clippers to kind of hear how much I'm cutting. One thing I kind of had to work on for myself was I was afraid, as I was fading, I was afraid of kind of taking each step too high. So I wasn't going high enough, and it was taking me a lot longer to get through my haircuts because I wasn't like kind of following through with my strokes, if that makes sense. So if you find yourself kind of taking forever to fade, like for me, I just had to start trusting myself, trusting that I wasn't going to take it too high and I wasn't going to, make any holes or anything like that. So that is something like I still keep in mind and I still work on today. Just kind of trusting myself and, trusting that I know what I'm doing and I'm not going to make a mistake, and just following through with my strokes. Since I have this guard on, I'm going to go ahead and continue fading the beard down. And another reason why the shape of the haircut is so important is because you can kind of make or break, the shape of your client. So this is my boyfriend. So his cheeks are kind of wide, and if I cut his hair into the curvature of his head, I will give him an egg head, and I've done that before, so I learned my lesson. So keeping it really square gives kind of balances this out, because if his hair goes in like that to the curve of his head, it makes his cheeks look fuller. But if I keep it square, it's kind of one smooth line. So that's another reason why I do shape over shade. And I had a cosmetologist ask me, you know, like, because like with women's hair, you kind of look at you look at their face and you say, okay, if their face is wide, they need like longer layers to elongate their face, or if they have a really skinny face, you know, more volume around the face to kind of even that out. It's kind of the same, but kind of not. I have never looked at someone's face and said, oh, like I need to build more weight here or this or that. I just keep everything square, 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 square. I will build more weight in a haircut if the hair texture can support it, meaning the hair will lay down if I build more weight, but if not, then I keep it really tight and really square. And one thing I also learned with building weight is, you know, I love to build weight. I love to give haircuts a really nice shape. So I'll shape someone's hair and, you know, it'll kind of, you know, we'll build some weight. It'll look really nice. But you have to keep in mind when they come back in 4 weeks, it may look like that. So if it looks like a little mushroom when you cut it, when they come back, it's going to look like a big mushroom. So that's what we don't want. And then you can ask your clients that too, like, you know, does your hair lay down at a certain length or whatever, or does it stick out at a certain length? So these are all things that you can ask in your consultation. Okay, I'm going to throw on my one guard. Again, we're doing a nice short, tight beard, so I can kind of take this a little bit lower, as you can see. Obviously, if your client does have a longer beard, you're not going to fade it this low. If they do have a long beard and they want to keep it long, your fade should really only come to maybe like about right here on the ear. I use the ear as like little indicators, especially to like match them up on each side. So as you're fading, you know, say, okay, I took my one to this part of the ear, so I'm going to do that on the other side. So that way they're even. And I do the same thing, finding points on the head, like especially around here, like when I'm fading, like to make sure they're even. You don't want one side of the head to be a low fade and then the other side to be like a high fade. So look at the shades on the head. So like right here, you can look, say, oh, this is kind of like, you know, like a medium shade of gray. Make sure it matches on the other side so that way it's symmetrical. And again, same thing for cutting sideburns. If someone has sideburns, pick a point on the ear and then match it on the other side. Any questions so far? Shout them out. Okay, so now we're going to do clip over comb. This is where we're going to take off this bulk, blend the sides to the top, and really build my shape. So remember to always come out, pick up your hair, and come out away from the head. Just chip away, not erase. If you are not super comfortable with clipper over comb, I would highly, highly advise you to practice, practice, practice. Do whole haircuts, clip over comb. Clip over comb is so important when it comes to men's hair cutting and short hair. Clip over comb is where I sculpt the haircut and I build my shape. A lot of my guys that come in with longer hair that have, would do like a 4 or longer on the sides, I'll do the whole haircut clip over comb. That's one way to get good at it. And for me, I do clipper over comb kind of with my blade closed a little bit, only because I have created the habit of putting my comb exactly where I need it to be. So if I had my blade open and I was doing clipper over comb, it would be a little bit longer because I'm so used to putting my comb exactly where I need the hair to be. So if you are new to clip over comb, I would advise you to do it with your blade open. I'm always coming away from the head. Always, always, always. And if you are doing, like, they have longer hair on the sides, and you, so I was teaching a class at the salon, right? And I was trying to teach them clipper over comb, but everyone did like a 3 on the sides. I think they were just afraid to like try a fade. So when they were doing clipper over comb, they were doing this and like coming out like they were supposed to, but since the hair was longer, they were cutting holes in the hair. So if you are working with longer hair and you're doing clipper over comb, you have to pull the comb away from the head, and I use my finger against the head as like my little anchor. So just keep that in mind. That's just something I've noticed from teaching classes. So keep that in mind if you're working with longer hair and doing clip over comb. You can use your finger to push your comb away from the head and use it as an anchor. And again, I am using my JRL 2020s. This clipper is awesome. This is our newest model. It has a 4-hour runtime, 7,200 RPMs. LED screen tells you your runtime. Whenever your blade needs oil, a little oil can will pop up and start blinking. This will start flashing red whenever it needs to be charged. They did a really good job with this clipper. So now what I'm doing is I'm kind of just doing some detailing. So when you do clipper over comb, you want to come across. But now that I'm just doing detailing, whatever dark spot I find, I'll kind of place it in my comb, and then going up will kind of act as like a texturizing shear. Because since the teeth of the comb go up and down, right? If I'm going up and down with my clipper, I'm essentially kind of like pushing the hair. So it's not cutting it completely as if I were going this way. So this is kind of like a little texturizing trick. And so since I do keep everything really square, like sometimes you'll see like you'll kind of get like a ridge right here, wherever you were bringing your comb out to. In order to get rid of that, you're going to pick up the hair and just put that ridge at the, you're just going to put it hanging off of the spine, just ever so slightly. You're going to lift it up and then kind of tilt in just to bevel that corner and cut that corner off. That will soften that ridge and make it look really nice. And since everyone's head is not perfectly round, we do have a little bump right here. See, it's a little bit darker. I don't want to just slap a guard on and try and get that out, because that will mess up the shape and silhouette of my haircut, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get my texturizing shears and just work that out. You wanna use your texturizing shears when you want to remove like a dark spot or weight, but not necessarily length. So if you ever see a dark spot in your fade, you can kind of come in with your texturizing shears first, do that and see what that takes out. If it's still a little bit too dark, it still is a little dark for me. Without going into the shape of my haircut, so my dark spot's right here. I'm gonna kind of like pinpoint it with my comb. I'm gonna close my blade a little bit and just kind of work out just that one spot. Just kind of pinpointing it with the corner of my blade. And since that is very detail work, I do have my blade all the way closed. If you are going to try that, be very, very careful. If you cut too big of a hole, especially like right here, you're gonna have to pretty much go back and kind of, not essentially start over, but start over. So just be super aware. But again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, I will leave a little bit of darkness right there in order to have a better shape. And since I'm here, I will go ahead and kind of start fading this side of the beard. So whenever I do beards, I will do clipper over comb only, and I will do clipper over comb like this. Only if I'm doing a short beard and if I can comb through it nicely. If you get the guys that come in here that just have a mess on their face and you can't even comb through it like smoothly and you're like kind of tugging, like I would not do clipper over comb. You have to treat beards essentially like curly hair. So, you want to use unless it's super short and that you can comb through it nicely, use a wide tooth comb so that way you're not pulling too much tension like with curly hair, because if you do that with super coarse beards, if you pull it really tight and you start doing clipper over comb and you let go, it's going to be a lot shorter, just like it would with curly hair. So Only if it's nice and smooth and short will I do clipper over comb like this. If it is a lot harder to comb through the beard, that's when you're gonna kind of do your just freehand. And beards are a lot less dense than the hair on people's heads. So again, the fade on the beard isn't going to be perfect. The perfect beards you see on the internet are all spray painted. So keep that in mind. Any questions? Any questions? Shout them out. Oops, sorry. Oh, sorry, I have not been paying attention to the chat. If you have questions, shout them out, but let me see. Oh, sorry, you could have heard me earlier. My bad. Okay, so getting the bald line to the hair with a smooth transition has been a struggle. Biggest challenge for me is blending in the long hair from the top to the short. Okay, cool. Okay, so if you are doing a bald fade, a tip to blending out that initial guideline is using the corner of your blade. Just using the corner of your blade, kind of, so here's the head, tilting out like that, and just doing that, and keeping in mind to flick. This, using the corner of blade will teach you a lot of control as well. If you're gonna kind of just go in there and just start going after it, you're gonna lose control and kind of lose, just everything's gonna go crazy. You're probably gonna start fading a little bit too high, So I have found that using, and it may take a little longer, but that's okay. Again, it's not a race. I can guarantee your client will appreciate you taking the time rather than just trying to rush through things. So if you need to practice control and blending out that line, use only half of your blade. That will help a lot. And two, so if you are using like a trimmer to create your bald line, that you may be creating a little bit too harsh of a line at first. So instead of using your trimmer, just use your clipper and close it all the way so it's a 0, and then put in your initial guideline, and then start blending up, and then you can come back in with your trimmer and kind of bald out the bottom. That will also help. But just practice, 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 practice. You know, this is a skill and a craft, and it takes people a long time to learn this. And don't compare your journey to anyone else's. Like, someone may pick up a pair of clippers and be able to bust out a fade super fast and super clean. And if it takes you longer, that's fine. Like, my haircut appointments are 45 minutes. Even if I could cut hair faster, I wouldn't want to. One thing my clients really appreciate is that I do take my time. Even if they just get like a 2 on the sides and like trim the top, a super simple haircut, I still take my time. I still give it 100% every time. And that's why I've been able to build the clientele that I have. And then blending from short to long. So, and I am going to leave the top of his hair, so it's not going to get any shorter than that. So one key thing is you have someone that, especially with like the styles that are, you know, circulating around the internet, the top is super long and they have the super short fade on the sides. Now, depending on the style, you're going to approach it differently. But keeping that shape coming out. You can still have the top super long and still have a super tight fade on the sides by building weight, keeping it square. If you start fading and you're going into the curve of the head, see, now you're cutting into that length that you're trying to keep. If this was super long and I came out here and kept it really square, you see right here, this top hair, you can't just have like, unless you're doing like an undercut and you want the hair to just like flop over, the top is going to essentially like be square with the sides. And then like for the front, if someone wants, let me pull up my phone real quick. So I don't know if you guys follow me on Instagram, but let's see. I hope you guys can see that. It's kind of crappy. But any style that it has a super tight fade on the sides, long on the top, let me see. Like this guy. So he has a bald fade on the sides and super long on top. So in order to keep, where's my finger? All right. In order to keep that length, it has to be disconnected. So what I do is when I do haircuts like that, pretty much from the ear back is blended and the front here is disconnected. And I can show you how I do that in just a second. But all this stuff takes practice. If there's a certain haircut that you are trying to get and you just can't, I mean, just keep practicing, practice, 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 and then practice some more. I mean, there really are no shortcuts and stuff like this. You know, just offer free haircuts, find models, stuff like that, and try haircuts that you want to get better at. A lot of the barbers and, you know, the people you see on Instagram, these are people who have been doing hair for, you know, 15 plus years. They have a ton of experience under their belt. So again, like, don't go on the internet and say, like, how come my haircuts don't look like that and this and that. For one, a lot of people use Photoshop nowadays and enhancements. And again, they find the models with the super smooth, perfectly round heads. The haircuts I do every day, the haircuts that pay my bills, they are not Instagram haircuts. That's just the truth. So don't get down on yourselves if you're, you know, scrolling through Instagram and you see these perfect blurry fades and perfect lines and stuff like that. It's just not realistic. You can wet the hair down and kind of comb it to see any extra weight that you need to take out. And I am that kind of barber where I look at my haircut from every angle, because again, shape is the most important thing for me. So I will look at the silhouette of my haircut from every angle to make sure that, you know, there's not like a bump or anything needs to be taken shorter or shaped better, anything like that. So and everyone cuts hair so differently. You can have one person take the same haircut and show it to 5 different barbers, and it's all going to come out completely different. You cut hair how you think looks good. So the clientele that I have attracted is, you know, they like the way I cut hair, and I cut hair the way that I think looks good. So I'm not for everyone. I have people that come sit in my chair, and, you know, I cut their hair one time and they don't come back. And that's fine. I don't want to be for everyone. I would be way too busy if everyone liked the way I cut hair. But that's what sets you apart. That's what makes you unique. So yeah. My clients appreciate that I take my time. You know, it's all about the experience in the barbershop. I mean, I could totally be making more money if I did like 30-minute haircuts, but for me, I'd rather work smarter, not harder. I'd rather raise my prices and charge more rather than just trying to fit in like 20 haircuts in a day. That's way too stressful. I'm not trying to do that. And one other trick, if you're having trouble blending out the bald line, so you're going to take off your bulk with like your one guard, then go down to your next guard, kind of fade below that, take the guards off so that way you just have your blade, and fade below that, and you can even close that blade halfway and fade below that, so that way when you do go in and close your blade all the way to a 0 and make that guideline, it'll be a lot less harsh. So it might be easier for you to remove that line too if you do it that way. There are 1,000,001 ways to cut hair, so just try different techniques and see which one works best for you. Also, having kind of like a mentor will really help. If you know someone in your city that you really like the way they cut hair, reach out to them and ask them like, hey, can I, on my day off, can I go in and just watch you cut hair? I learned so much by just sitting in the barbershop and watching people cut hair. So that will help you a lot too. And if you are starting out as a Cosmo and looking to get into men's hair, you have an advantage by knowing how to use shears. Well, at least I hope you know how to use shears, but you have a huge advantage there. I get a lot of guys that come to me and they say like, yeah, like my old barber could fade my hair really well, but he didn't know how to cut the top of my hair. Especially with the styles that you see nowadays, you have to know how to cut and style the top of the hair. That's what your clients are looking for. And like same if you're a barber crossing over to Cosmo, you have an advantage of being able to use clippers and fade. So being able to bridge the gap between barber and Cosmo is a huge, huge advantage. So whenever I cut the top of the hair, I do the exact same steps every time. So first I establish my length, whatever I'm gonna do, I'm gonna establish my length in the front. So I set my length in the front. And now, I don't do super clean sections. That's just how I cut hair. If you want to do clean sections, then do clean sections. And then I'm going to come in like center mohawk and connect this front to the back. And my haircuts are always angled like this because the front, you want the front to be longer. So when I connect this, the hair is essentially angled like this. I do a ton of gentleman haircuts, like side parts and stuff like that. Like that's what I do all day. I enjoy doing them, but it's a breath of fresh air when people come in and they like want a mullet or a crop or just something different. So I do like doing kind of like weird funky stuff whenever I get the opportunity. But yeah, like side parts all day. And you can easily get burnt out by doing the same thing. So if that happens to you, then I would advise like maybe 1 or 2 days a week, the last hour of your day, block off that appointment and get a model to come in and just to try something new. And you can start posting that on your Instagram, posting those, different kind of funky haircuts that you want to attract. So yeah, by posting them, people will see that like, oh, she can do a mullet. So then they'll come to you, and that's how you kind of attract those kinds of clients. That's happened to me before, but no, I don't mind doing side parts. Okay, so I got my length in the front. I connected the front to the back, and now I'm going to take horizontal sections. So I'm going to pick this up, and since I have my guideline, my center mohawk right there, I'm going to pick this up and connect. Still keeping it square. So instead of like angling like this to kind of go with the curve of the head, I'm still keeping it somewhat like horizontal, so that way it's still square. So when I first started cutting hair, I mean, a lot of my clientele has been side parts. So I've been doing side parts for a long time. So I used to be the barber that would leave the hair that's over here by the part that you comb over, I would leave this hair super long. And like my boss at the time, he was like, no, cut this shorter. And I was like, no, it has to be long so it lays down. That's not the case. You don't want this big old floppy long hair that people have to, mess with and manage and try to get to comb over. So if you're doing a side part, you don't need to leave this hair long on this side that gets combed over. So I kind of over direct it this way and kind of just like cut this corner off so that way it's not super long. And you don't want it to be too heavy. It would be way too heavy when I would leave it that long. So now that I did my sectioning this way, all the way back, now I'm going to connect the sides to the top. So keeping in mind that everything has to be square, I'm going to come in, get my hair, bringing my fingers out to keep it square. If you come in and you keep your hand resting on their head, you're going to cut into the curve of the head and lose your shape. So use your fingers, bring them out exactly how you do the clip over comb. When you bring your comb out, you're going to do that with your hands. And I know it can be kind of straining on your wrist, but turn the camera off, Gabe. Bring your fingers out and your shears are straight. So in order to keep that straight angle, that square angle, you can put your shears here like this and just cut that corner off to keep it square. Following the curve of the head, still bringing my fingers out so that way I don't go into the curve of the head. And now for like the haircut that I had pulled up on my Instagram where it was super long in the front. So what I do to connect it all is I do the same thing. I bring it all here, tilt my fingers out to preserve that length because over directing preserves length, right? If you want to keep length in the front, you're going to over direct back. If you wanted to keep length here for whatever reason, you would over direct forward, right? So we're going to do the same. It's the same exact thing. So grab your hair, pull your fingers out to preserve that length, cut. And I'm going to do that all the way around until I get to about right here. So, and then since I want to keep that length in the front, what do? I over direct back. So I would bring all this hair back to this point and then cut that. So that way, like this area right here, this would be disconnected. And then you could go in, there's different techniques. You could do like some slide cutting, some texturizing and stuff like that. So that way it's not just short, long. I do have a little bit of transition between the short and long, but it's usually still pretty disconnected. And I always shampoo my clients after I'm done cutting their hair and thoroughly styling it. So that way I can do my final touches and make sure that it's perfect. So like connecting the short to the long, just keep over direction in mind. Just think to yourself, where am I trying to keep length? Mostly in the front, right? So to keep length in the front, I have to over direct in the opposite direction. This way. So just keep that in mind. And when keeping it square again, you might have a little bit of weight right here. You can get your texturizing shears and kind of lighten that a little bit, or just come in and pick this up and just kind of snip this little corner off. And I'm going to do that same thing around the head, especially around the crown. You still need to come, and when you're picking up your sections, bring the hair out because we don't want to cut this crown off. If you're not able to unmute, I'm not sure why it's doing that. So I will keep up with the chat if you have any questions. Okay, I'm going to finish up the haircut. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. I want to get to the beard so you guys can see me do that. If clipper over comb and like detailing clipper over comb kind of scares you, which sometimes sometimes I trust myself more doing shear over comb, you can do that to detail. Again, he has like a dip right here, so that is usually always dark. That's just his head, and that's fine. Especially like right here in these temple areas, the hair is a lot more fine as well. So if it makes you nervous doing clipper over comb in those areas, you can do shear over comb to kind of just lighten any dark areas right here, because that hair is always a little more fine. If you're going to do really close detailing with the corner of your blade, keep in mind that going like this is going to be essentially like a 0, and the further you tilt your blade away from the head, the longer it's going to be. So if you have your blade completely like this and you're detailing with the corner, I mean, you could get up into the lengths of like a 1.5. But be careful, because you got to watch your angles. If you come in like this, you will just scribble little bald lines in the hair. So you don't want to do that. So watch your angles, but that's just a little tip. Another little tip when doing beards, kind of no matter the length, I like to taper it a little bit right here, because the first thing to grow out on beard trims is this part right here. So you essentially want your beards to grow down and not out. So by keeping this a little bit tapered right here, will help with that. And that's just kind of coming in with your comb and bringing it out like that and cutting it this way. Because again, we want to preserve length, so we're going to over direct in the opposite direction. So like that, and then you can kind of do that. I hope my big old hair isn't like in the way. Sorry if it is. Again, I can use clip over comb like this because I can brush through it pretty nicely. Whenever I do someone's mustache, I always ask them if they want me to trim the entire mustache or just line it up. So in order to trim the actual mustache, as you saw, I just kind of did clip over comb, brought my comb out still, so that way I didn't just like buzz the whole thing off. Now this is where you want the bulk of your beard to be. So you always want to kind of keep it tapered here to the face, and then leave it longer here. If I were to just say like take a 2 to his beard, it would give him that egg shape that I was telling you guys about. But leaving some more length here and having it tapered on the sides gives him a really nice shape. So, and that's what it's about. Making your clients look the best. He doesn't look his best with an egg head. So there you go. Always look at it from the front, because that's what your client sees. When they look in the mirror, that's what they see. So they don't see over here on the sides, or even like for the haircut in the back of the head, they don't see the back of their head. You need to look your client, stand back, look your client from the front, and make sure that everything looks good. The beard is symmetrical, the fade on each side, the shape of your haircut. Look at it from the front because that's what your client sees. Okay, so now I'm going to come in with my 1050 trimmer from JRL, and we're going to do the hairline, the beard, and just line everything up. So for the beard, you want to kind of follow this line right here and just bring that straight down. Using the corner of your blade to detail the hairline. And then with the cheeks, you don't ever want to take it too low. Don't give your people an Amish beard unless they want an Amish beard. So keep it as high as you can. And then if you want to detail that with the blade, you totally can. And in order to get like that really nice curve that you see, if you pull their cheek up, that'll help you get that really nice curve. And then also, since I only used my clipper, so I can kind of come in here and just clean this up with my trimmer, this 0 that I put in here. And if you're gonna do it that way, like if you're gonna go in and detail with your trimmer afterwards, so that way you don't have such a harsh line to take out initially, you're not gonna be super stiff when doing it. So don't come like this and stop, like this and stop. Be loose with it so that way you don't create any new lines because the haircut's already done. And then too, if you do see that you may have like created a little harsh line, if you go like that and just go down with it wherever you created that line, that'll kind of help soften it and take it out. So kind of like this, just going down with it. This little trimmer here has 3 different speeds, which is really awesome. Low, medium, and high. Has an hour-and-a-half of run time. It's super lightweight, super small, pretty powerful. Again, you're going to take the corner of your blade. And whenever you do this, you want to kind of stay towards, you know, don't take it in too far. That's not going to make for the best grow out. So follow it as naturally as possible. Obviously, if you're looking to get that really nice curve, you will have to go into the hairline a little bit, but just don't take it too far. You can kind of come in and just sharpen that up a little bit. I don't do a lot of edge ups, so you won't see me doing one today, sorry. Okay. Now for the mustache, we are going to line the mustache. One little trick is if you turn your comb like this and use the spine of your comb and kind of push the hairs down, you can line it up a little cleaner that way. Sorry if my big old head is in the way. Can you see? Mm-hmm. And then if you kind of comb these corner hairs, because these corner hairs will get long, and like you'll have guys complaining that like when they try to eat, all the hair goes in their mouth. So if you kind of just push this in a little bit and clean that up, they will definitely appreciate that. Okay. The line under here, I usually keep kind of low. You don't want to just go in right away and go right to like the jawline. although where you put the line will kind of help your client like give them a jawline. Say if they're like, you know, they don't have a super divine jawline, you can kind of create one with the line that you put here. And if you're unsure where to put the line, just ask them like, hey, how far do you want your line, down or up? And then like these hairs, like most guys have a lot of different growth patterns underneath here. So by kind of just pushing these down, any hairs that are growing like that way, you'll kind of push them down so that way you could clean that up. Sorry, I'm about to put my big head in front of the camera, but you always want to look directly at your client to make sure that the line is even. And since he does have a lot of crazy growth patterns under here, the hair grows like that. I'm just looking to make sure that it's like fairly straight from the side. So instead of having like these long hairs that kind of come out like this, you want it kind of like straight. You can freehand it if you want, if it's longer. This is where you would do some like freehand shaping, just kind of coming in straight like that. So that way it is nice and like square in shape. And he also has like some crazy swirls here in the corner, so I do like to taper that down. I do so many beards and I really love doing them. And I learned how to do them by cutting his beard. So I would do something and he would tell me like, oh, like, I don't really like this, or, you know, it grows out funny like this, or I like when you do this. So find you a model and just practice beard trims on them if you're trying to get better at them, and then ask them for feedback. That's like the best way to learn. Oh, sorry.
I think you can scratch my nose with your comb. Thank you.
Okay, so real quick, I'm pretty much done. I'm going to wash him out real quick so you guys can stay on here. But I'm going to wash him out real quick, blow dry, and I always do some final touches after I style. And you guys can also see how I style. No, I don't ever use a taper comb, just my the flat top comb and the barber comb. Oh, what's up, Tyler? But again, like, I mean, to each their own. Everyone cuts hair differently, so if you like using a taper comb, then that's totally fine. And then again, like with the angles on your comb, I like some of the classes I've taught in the past, like the cosmetologists have a really hard time with clip over comb. So just work your angles. Try going this way, this way, this way. Just see whatever works for you. So it's, you know, learning a new craft is trial and error. So now I do wash out every client. They very much appreciate not being sent out being covered in hair. So if you do not shampoo your clients, I would recommend that you do. And not only for that, but people come in wearing hats and bed head and, you know, however they combed it. 90% of the time after I wash it and style it myself, there are areas that will like pop up or whatever that need touching up. So I also do it for that. And clean out the hair from inside their ears. It's all about the service. Okay, so to style, I will be using the Hunter 1114 Texture Tonic. It is a sea salt spray, so it just adds a little bit of grit and texture to the hair. And after thoroughly blow drying it with this stuff, you'll need less product. Sorry, it's about to get loud, but first I'm going to power dry it, get most of the moisture out, and then I will start really styling it. So after blow drying, I kind of see everything that needs touch-ups. So then I'll kind of go in and just do those final touch-ups, especially like right here.
You're doing a great job, Jess. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then one other little tip, like right here. So your client's head is like your blueprint for your haircut, right? So you have to follow the shape of their head. So since I look at all my clients from the front, since that's what they see, if you're doing haircuts like this, a lot of times where the hair comes right here, it'll look like this because you try and keep it square, right? But since the head starts to curve in a little bit right here, just by tapering this in a little bit will really help with any hairs that are sticking out in this corner. Alrighty, now let's put some product in. To style, I will be using Hunter 1114 raw matte clay. I'm going to take about that much. I probably won't even use that much, but rub it in. I like to kind of just like pat it on the head so that way I can get it everywhere. Get some on your fingertips and put it right there at the base so that way you have some volume. And see, if I look from the front, I can see there's a little bit right here in this corner that needs touching up. So we're gonna do that. When doing side parts, after I actually like part it, there's usually a few little hairs that will hang over, so make sure you just clean those up as well.
Hey, Ray.
Someone's mic is on.
What? Cheeseburger.
All right, that's essentially our final look. Lots of volume in front, clean fade on the sides. Follows the shape of his head. It's gonna grow out nice. It's gonna last for a long time. Beard is shaped. So yeah.
You go, girl. You go, girl.
Yeah. All right. Any more questions or anything that I can help you guys with? Feel free also to reach out to my Instagram. You can ask me questions through their DME. I will do my best to answer them. I hope you guys took some notes, learned a little something, and hopefully we can do this more often. Awesome. Thank you guys. Have a great day.